Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brownstone. You are listening to Zim Ladies Roundtable. I am your host, Tino, and I am joined by my co-host, Dr. Taffy. At Zim Ladies Roundtable, we believe in engaging, empowering, and elevating our community. Today, we have a special guest with us, Mr. Ivan. He is the CEO of 1980 T-Shirt Company. But before Ivan shares more about his business, make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Zim Ladies RT and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Zim Ladies Roundtable so you don't miss any more shows. Thank you so much, Mr. Ivan, for joining us. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay.
Tell us more about you.
Thank you for inviting me on. Wanted to say, first of all, you guys are doing an amazing job. I've seen many episodes of yours. They're always interesting. And not only that, I completely get what you're working towards, and I commend you because I know it's not easy. So you're doing a good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
So my name is Ivan Munadawafa. I am a Zimbabwean, and I live in Cleveland, Ohio. I was born in Zimbabwe, moved here when I was younger with my family. Mom came to go to school, and then we grew up here into my teens and adulthood. Have family in Zimbabwe, still have family here. So over the years, we went through the usual immigrant methods of making it in the U.S., school, work, a combination of both. And then at some point, I decided with a friend of mine it was always in the works. We always thought about it and talked about it, but I decided to start to make a lean towards entrepreneur. We started off with a restaurant. We had a restaurant called Rose's Bry here in Cleveland, Ohio, from 2016 to about 2020. And then when we closed the restaurant, I decided to go into selling Zimbabwean artifacts, art, sculptures, and then that grew into working with a bunch of like Zimbabwean business people who were around the country who already had entities that were existing. So I decided at that point to make myself almost like a marketplace where people who had things that they were selling could come and sell them through me. I could sell stuff through them, just essentially working together. And then while I was doing that, I had the idea to come up with something inside of the store that was going to be connected to what I was trying to do, which was spread and get people to understand and know and mostly appreciate like Zimbabwean culture. And then I came up with an idea for a T-shirt that just said 1980 on it, just like the one I'm wearing right here. Mm-hmm. And the idea of it was to find a brand, a logo that was connected to Zimbabwe, but had almost a, I don't want to say generic, but something that wasn't excluding any group, any religious belief, any political leaning, any age, sex, race, because Zimbabwe is a multicultural, multi-gendered, multi-political, multi-everything country, just like the US is. But I realized that in our travels around the world, there wasn't a lot of things that we really had a touchstone for, that every single Zimbabwean could kind of come back to without it being a source of any major differences from people coming. So I came up with a shirt that just said 1980. I took some of my tax returns after I paid my bills. And a friend of mine, this is a little side story, which I don't know if a lot of people know, but a friend of mine, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who was starting a printing press, who had bought a bunch of equipment from someone who had been in the business for years and years and didn't want the business anymore, sold the equipment to a friend of mine. And I literally was out having drinks with a bunch of my friends, and I ran into a friend of mine who was at the time transitioning from working in the music industry into going into printing. And we almost simultaneously started a conversation about T-shirts. And he's like, it's funny, I just bought equipment for T-shirts. And I was like, there's no way you're saying that. I just came up with an idea for a T-shirt brand, and I literally am looking for someone to print T-shirts. That same night, the next day I went to see him. He printed like 50 shirts. I took them back to the store. I put them in the store. I priced them so that if people came in and couldn't pick up any of the other items I was selling in the store, at least they had something that they could just grab, because my sculptures were not cheap because it's not cheap to get them in from Zimbabwe. So, but I wanted someone to kind of pick up something quickly. So I priced them at what I thought was like a decent price for people to pick up. And so slowly, people didn't really understand what it was. Non-American people just connected it, some of them, to a birthday. People would come in and say, me and my wife graduated college that year. I like the T-shirts. As Zimbabweans would come in sometimes and be like, oh, 1980, this is kind of cool, independence, and pick it up. And then this was sort of when COVID was becoming problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID became very problematic. And then we shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went from a store where I needed people to come in to actually look at what I had, to no traffic at all because everyone is at home. And so I came up with an idea of how I could potentially maybe survive during that time. And I reached out to family and friends that were as far away across the world as I could. And I was like, listen, I started this T-shirt brand. Everyone's at home right now. So I'm kind of trying to take advantage of the time where the world is kind of structured the way it is, where people are looking at their computers and phones. Friends and families reached out and they were like, yeah, I'm willing to help. And they bought some stuff online, and some I did trades with people who were already in business. And eventually what happened was I managed to get my T-shirts in places around the world before it was actually there, before I was selling them there. So people saw that there was someone in Australia who had a T-shirt, and a couple of people in the UK, and friends were going on vacation. That was when flights were very cheap and people were jumping on planes. And so anytime I found someone who was going out of town, I'd be like, hey, listen, do you want to buy one of my shirts? And if not, can you do me a favor? If you get it, if you can't, or you can, please take pictures when you get to where you're going to. And people would take pictures and send them. And then everyone who I know sort of kind of caught on, and family and friends and people some who were in different parts of the world who realized what I was trying to do. And in the beginning, I tried to move away from the idea that it's anything but Zimbabwean thing that people can share, even if you're not from Zimbabwe. So the brand is not just for Zimbabweans. The brand is for people who appreciate the country. The brand is for people who know someone from the country. The brand is for people who haven't even been to the country, who don't know anyone from the country, but just kind of appreciate what it is, as something that is connected to the beginnings of a country and people's like first stages and then moving out. And as I realized that this was starting to happen, then I decided to see if I could find common themes. And one of the common themes I found, that I started making it about origin and people's origin and your origin story. And not just your origin story, but how far from your point of origin you've traveled. Not just geographically, but also even mentally, even socially. How big is your network become? How far have you traveled from Harare, from Bulawayo, from Gweru, from Tare, it doesn't matter where you grew up in Zim. And not only that, but how far have you if you're a local Clevelander, or if you are from New York City and you've never been to Africa, how far away are you from your point of origin? What is the distance between where you started in your life, and where you decided you wanted your journey to begin, to where it is now? And that's when I realized that there was a very common theme in people's travels, whether they were physical or just even spiritual. Well, I don't want to say spiritual, because that's not necessarily, that's a different aspect of this, but it is involved in some way, where there is a spirituality involved in your own personal movement from one place to the other. And so 1980, from that point on, I decided to kind of make it into that, a connection of like people's journey. And one of my taglines I use is bring it along, or take it with you. I use both of those, because anytime you're leaving your house, I want you to have a 1980 T-shirt with you in your bag as one of the things that you take and wherever you're going. And also, you could be going to the grocery store, or you could be going to climb Mount Everest. It doesn't matter. It's part of your journey. It's part of your trip. And When I did that, when I found something that I felt was the bigger meaning in what I was trying to do, for me personally, it became more than just a t-shirt. It now started to represent something else. And to be honest with you, it became easier to sell because people were now connecting with that more than anything else. So
it became a movement. Yeah.
yeah, it became a movement. And then at that point, it wasn't as hard to even market anymore. You know, I didn't do as much work in terms of getting people, because once people understand what you're doing, you sometimes don't even have to tell them. They just see it for themselves and they get it. I have conversations with people who I'm like, "Well, so 1980 is about this," and they're like, "No, I get it. I know you're this, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, okay. I didn't even know that kind of managed to transcend in like so now even with the visuals and the marketing I do, I try and do it in a way in which I'm telling that story. And this is the one thing that I always tell people, the story that I tell people in reference to growth of what it became and the movement is networks are not things that we really create. That's what I realized and understood. Networks, you don't really create a network. What you do is you almost like brush it off and follow the line because the network already exists. Our job when we network is not to try and find a network or create it. No, I'm sorry. The job is not to create the network. The job is to see how you're connected to the person. There's two ways to do it. You can walk into a room of complete strangers who've never met before and start to have a conversation with them. A lot of times, the greatest networking you do in that room is, wait, did your brother went to Ohio State too? No way, because my cousin's neighbor is Ohio. What's his name? Oh, his name is this and that. Oh, perfect, right? You and everyone there, you'll realize that there's networks that already exist. And so what happened to me was I was sitting on my couch. This was a Saturday. I was watching TV, right? And a friend of mine sent me a text message on WhatsApp. She's in Zimbabwe. Hey, listen, I'm in Zim, and I was down. She was in a hair salon, or she was somewhere where she saw a musician who over the years I'd become cool with because I reached out to them a long time ago and was like, can we work together? I'm trying to come up with this brand called 1980. It's Zimbabwean centered. And she was like, oh, that's perfect because I've got an album that I'm trying to grow and I want to open myself up to the Zimbabwean market. So she was doing a lot of traveling back and forth, England and Zimbabwe. I won't mention the name because I don't know if, but if you go on my page and you see it, you'll see it. Okay, fine. It's not that big of a secret. Her name is Shingai.
Okay.
Shingai Shoniwa, yes. I don't even know why I made it seem like it was like confidential. But she's in Zim, and a friend of mine is in Zimbabwe too. And a friend of mine says she makes this friend of mine I'm talking about makes jewelry, and she makes her own jewelry, and she has a brand. So she has always wanted to see if Shingai in some way or the other could wear her jewelry either in a photo shoot or in a music video or this and that. So she sends me a message and she says, Shingai is here. I saw her. She's here. They were like in the same vicinity. I really want to I want to have a conversation with her. And I know you know her because I saw her on 1980. And she has a picture on 1980 on your Instagram. And I was like, yeah, she's become like someone who I'm cool with. Let me see if I can reach out to her and see if you guys can connect since you're both in Harare. Sent a text message to her, and she said, yes, absolutely. Are we in the same place right now? And I said, yes, I believe you are in the same, So I gave her the number. She called her. And then my friend called me back like 20 minutes later. And she's like, thank you so much. I'm going to see her tomorrow. She's got this big photo shoot and I'm taking my stuff with me. So long story short, the friend ended up going there and giving her the jewelry. Shingai wore the jewelry on the photo shoot. It was a big thing. They worked together with a bunch of other artists and like designers in Zim. And I did this all from sitting on my couch, right? So that's when a light bulb went off. And I was like, there's something else going on here, which I didn't create, but which I think by creating 1980 and reaching out to as many people as I can, and I know from Zimbabwe, there are networks which my friend realized that the network was there. She knew that there was a link between me and this person, and I'm halfway across the world, and they're in the same place. So then I thought, imagine if you are in Paris for the Olympics and you decide to walk around with your 1980 T-shirt, and there's some Zimbabweans that are there for the Olympics as well, or maybe even some athletes, and they're from Zim, but they now know what 1980 is, and they know it was something that was started by this guy from Zimbabwe, and it's like a lot of Zimbabweans that are connected to. And you see another Zimbabwean wearing a 1980 T-shirt in a place where you are not familiar with, where they are not familiar with, but you see each other wearing the shirt.
Mhm.
If at that moment you are more inclined to go up to them and say, "Hey, excuse me," and start a conversation, then my work is done.
That's exactly how we've been getting our interviews, through a network. Because a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
these people, if I know one person, like for example, Alana, I didn't know who. I mean, I knew Alana from her music, but I didn't know her as a
Right.
person. But I reached
Right.
out. I know the manager, so I reached out to
Absolutely.
the manager. Manager says, "Cool," just gives the information. So that network is already there. We just have to know
Always.
how to tap into it.
Yeah.
It's already
We
there.
have to understand
Yeah.
how to maneuver it, and also there is etiquette on how you handle yourself, because you never
Absolutely.
do things that would remove you from the network.
That would remove you from the network. And people go to events sometimes and do what you would do, which is try and introduce yourself to someone and say, "This is me." But just tell your story. Tell your story. Tell them who you are. Talk about what you're doing and what your thing is. And you have actually increased the opportunity of you making a connection and your network growing, because there could be a chance that that person, while they're listening to your story, they hear something that's connected to them, that they then ask you, like, "Wait, so do you know this person, or are you from Zimbabwe?" Like, for Zimbabweans, there's so few of us that a lot of times when we go, and I remember reading this number, correct me if I'm wrong, I'll look at this again, but I remember reading something about how in 2021, the number I think was about 35 or 40,000 Zimbabweans that were living in the US.
The US alone.
The US alone. Right? So now, if you take away little kids, let's say anyone 18 and younger, or even 25 and younger, right? If you take people who, parents, aunties and uncles who come and visit or stay sometimes, and then you take away that group as well, and you leave the age group between 30 and 50, the number has become significantly smaller, right? So now you take that number and you spread it all around the US in different cities. If you're in a city and you mention you're from Zimbabwe, how many times have you guys been in conversations with people and they've been like, "Do you know so and so?" You're like, "Yes, I know that person very well. As a matter of fact, I was with them the other day." But then you look at the fact that with how connected we are, we don't have a lot of things that kind of bring us together.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to have something that, if people were in a room who were from Zimbabwe and they were talking about something, or maybe the conversation got heated, or maybe they had disagreements about this or whatever, if someone said 1980 though, everyone would be like, "Yeah, right, right, 1980. And so it's, that was kind of how it started. That's where we are now. And yeah.
So Ivan, we've for the past few minutes we've been mentioning 1980s Zimbabwe and all of that, but our audience has grown
Absolutely.
now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so a lot of
Absolutely.
people who are listening or watching this might not know what 1980 means to Zimbabwe.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
So 1980, absolutely, 1980 is when Zimbabwe gained its independence from England. And April 18th, 1980, there was a huge party celebration. There was a concert. My parents actually went. Bob Marley came to perform. Yeah, my parents were at that show. My mom continuously reminds me that she was there. Bob Marley performed. And so 1980 is like saying 1776, the country's like independence. And the reason why I chose that was because it, number one, is very recent. It's still relatable to a handful of generational groups who can still sort of connect. If you're born in the 80s, then 1980 is still something you can connect with in a way. 70s and before, obviously. But I wanted it to be something that was connected to Zimbabwe because that was Zimbabwe has a lot of cultures. There's 16 languages in Zimbabwe. I don't know if people really understand that. There's 16 different languages in Zimbabwe. There's tons of different cultures. There's 2,000 languages in Africa alone. So each country has nuances in terms of people being different. You can go from one city to another in Zimbabwe and there's two different languages and people sometimes don't understand each other, but you have a sense. And I say all that to say that we there's variations of people and cultures within what is called Zimbabwe. So 1980 to me was a way of sort of capturing the entire group without having to maybe possibly leave anyone out. Because if you're from Zimbabwe, 1980 became independent, and so there is a connection to that. Yeah. But thank you for asking, because that's a very important why it is what I've gotten so used to just saying 1980 over the years because without the assumption of
we know.
right. No, you're right. There isn't it because people have what's 1980 and I'm like, oh, Zimbabwe's independence. And so because of that, then they're like, oh, it gives you an opportunity. So what I did was within the clothing brand itself, I started incorporating different designs, which I want on the shirts to be a part of like giving history and culture in very small, subtle ways. I have a T-shirt that has Tsurunagudo on it, which to me is an ode to just the storytellers. And there are people who I have friends who live and work in Hollywood who actually have the shirt, which to me is the coolest. Which to me is the coolest thing about it all is that I have friends who are working in the movie industry who were like, "Oh, I like that shirt because it kind of represents who I am." You know, I have a shirt that has the beers, the very popular beers that Zimbabwe has or had still, Lion, Castle, Black Label, and Zambezi. And I have T-shirts that have like vacation spots. I have T-shirts that have. So the idea was to have different items, different T-shirts that have different items that represent different parts of Zimbabwean culture and history. And the 1980 was the name of the brand, but these other items were all included in it. And as time goes on, I'm going to kind of like grow those and go further and further. Yep.
And for those who don't know, Ivan's store is actually called Zambezi.
Yes.
It has a storefront in Cleveland that you can visit and purchase all these shirts. You can also go online and purchase all these shirts, but you can also go to the storefront and purchase. With everything that's happening, running your store, running your T-shirt company, and I'm sure various other things, because he actually builds things. So he's always busy. And he had a project I was building a plane or something. He's always doing something.
I work with artists. Yeah. So sorry, go on.
So how do you balance your business and your personal life? Because you're busy.
Honestly, there had to be somewhat of a sacrifice. And when I say a sacrifice, I mean, I've done both, and then I've done one, and then I realized that at a certain point, I almost had to. I know this sounds horrible, but I had to pick one. You know, and when I say pick one, it doesn't mean that I don't believe in or have pushed the other one to the side. It's like it's very hard to build and have, unless you have people in your life who get it, who maybe also are working on other things, and maybe they understand that your time away is not you're neglecting the relationships, but just more trying to build something that's going to benefit the relationships, period. But I almost had to go into work mode over the last like 3 or 4 years, where I was like, I literally do not have the time, and you can always make time, right? And I don't believe that you have to kind of quit one and do the other. But I think that the trick is to try and find, if you're going to be in a relationship, you have to find someone who maybe can understand what you're doing timeline wise. But as far as my personal, just balancing time, and I have days where I just shut down. Like Sunday, I don't do anything. I just kind of, I force myself to not do a single thing on Sunday. If it means I just sit on my couch and watch TV, then that's what I'll do. But once Monday hits, until like Saturday
back to work.
afternoon,
back on the grind. Back on the grind.
I have like three separate entities right now that I work on, and it's like the idea was to each one almost like spawned the other. So it's easy because they are related, and they have, for the most part, the people I work with are the same group of people who I do business with, because one kind of makes sense for the other, and so I think that's what makes it easier for me, because I don't have to have these three individual worlds that I work with. I have Zambezi, the store that has a lot of Zimbabwean stuff, and I work with like vendors and people who are already selling the items. 1980 is a spinoff of that, and so and I have a framing business which also is tied to Zambezi, but they were like these entities that started growing up, and I had to choose between either leaving them alone or just kind of continuing with them and letting them grow. So right now it's like those are the three things I'm working on the most. But I plan to make it make sense in terms of at some point bringing a human being into the picture. so
You heard it here first, ladies.
But listen, but I'm not.
That might be a good idea, Ivan, because he's on.
No. Listen. It is absolutely a great idea. I agree with it 100%. I'm not the type of person who says, "Oh, money this, then forget." No. Absolutely not. A relationship is a very important thing to have. I've always been a relationship guy, but there's a point where I had to make a choice because I'm trying to build something that's going to make sense down the road, and in order for whoever comes in to be happy, things have to look and make sense. And so that's really the goal. So the goal of doing all this is to try and provide a situation that's going to be helpful to bring someone in. It's not just for money. It's for
stability.
Stability, comfort, for
leisure.
Yes, for leisure. For leisure, not just mine, but
that downtime you have.
And it's like it's like every man and woman has had a point in their life where you have to just you have to just kind of you shut the doors and you just go at it. And then when you're done, you open up again and you provide this, and you're like, hey, world, look what I made. Anyone want to be part of, you know what I mean? But to try and do it the other way around, you're lying to yourself. It has to be done this way. So
well, thank you so much. Where can people find your products?
So I have a website. The website is 1980 T-shirt company, T-shirt CO. So that's 1980tshirtco.com. I do have a surprised people I've known for years have been like, wait, I've been buying stuff from you, but I didn't know I could get it online. I'm like, yes, you can get it online. I have a website. Website's been up for the duration of like the time. If not, you can always reach out on Instagram, and I'll send you links to buy the products. I deliver everywhere on the planet. There's nowhere where it cannot go. I've sent stuff to Australia. The only place I haven't sent 1982 is Iceland. and I'm serious.
Well, we hope from this interview that we reach somebody in Iceland.
Any Zimbos in Iceland or Greenland.
Greenland. See, that network you were talking about. Somebody's going to hear this and connect us.
Absolutely. Zimbabweans travel and go places. So I love to see when someone goes somewhere and takes 1980 with them, because what it does is it shows other people that someone who comes from where you come from can travel to these different places. And so, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, no, go to the website, hit me up on Instagram, or if not, reach out to the ladies, because, we're friends. They can ask you where to get it, and you guys, I'm sure, will like kind of direct them my way if you have time. So.
And what is your Instagram?
My Instagram is 1980 T-shirt Co. Yes, 1980 T-shirt.
What about the Zambezi one?
Zambezi is Zambezi CLE. The CLE is like Cleveland.
Okay.
So it's one word. Yes, Zambezi Cleveland and 1980 T-shirt Co. Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I'm still waiting for my T-shirt,
Yes,
Ivan.
yes, it's
I
on the
can't
way.
wait.
Let me tell you
And
something
I will
about
be
your shirt.
posting. Yes,
Let me
I
tell you
will
something
post
about
my
your shirt.
T-shirt.
Let me tell you something about your shirt. So what I did is one of the things I started to do with the shirts that have the smaller 1980 is I'm switching to embroidery. So so your shirt is like the second or third one. I think it may be the first V-neck to have an embroidery on it.
Oh.
Yes. So the polos and the V-necks. Yes, absolutely. Tino, you have one, don't you? You have a T-shirt, don't you?
An embroidered one?
I said I need a new one.
She wants an
No,
embroidered
you don't have an
one.
embroidered one. Yeah, for sure. No, because
I love embroidered shirts. It never fades. It doesn't peel. Oh yeah, that's great quality
It was a direction I was going to take eventually, and this is now the time for me to start to add and incorporate embroidery in the shirts. So because now we're going, things are looking up. So gotta improve. Can't keep doing the same thing. This is year 4 now, so I gotta do for year 4 stuff. Right? Can't be doing year 1 stuff in year 4. Right. So,
you all heard it right here at Zim Ladies Roundtable. The quality is better. Everything is better now.
Also, I don't have just T-shirts. I have hoodies. I have leggings for women. I have pretty much any piece of clothing you can think of. Yes, joggers. There's puffer jackets. There's hats. There's socks. There's different color shirts too. So definitely check out the website.
It's a whole line. It's
an entire line. And it all started with just this T-shirt. So, which the original one I have it framed in my office here at home. Yes.
Oh,
the number one, the very first one I made, which I made in 2020, and I took a picture with it, and my mom took the picture because she was in town visiting. And she was like, what are you working on? I'm like, it's this T-shirt thing, Mom. Just take a picture and we'll go from there. So now when she comes and she sees it, she's like, wow, this is like a thing now. And I'm like, yes, it is. So I love to see it.
I love it. Well, I love it. We love it. And, everybody check out his Instagram, the website. And, by 1980, there's a lot of culture behind it, a lot of love, a lot of hard work and sweat put behind these T-shirts and sweaters and the whole line. Absolutely. So, but, we want to thank you so much, Ivan, for joining us. We've been waiting for you for a while now.
I know. We finally got our schedules together. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it a lot.
Yes, I'm so happy you joined us today. And we're always happy to spread the word and share once I get my T-shirt, it'll be all over social media.
Excellent.
As well.
I know it will. Thank you so much. I appreciate
exactly it. So thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining us. Please make sure you catch us on Cityscape Radio and BWTV on brownstoneworldwide.com every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Ivan. Thank you, my co-host. And thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tino. Thank you, Taffy. You guys are awesome. Keep doing your thing.